I truly believe that entrepreneurship is access to freedom. We are the first generation of African Americans with full access to opportunity. I can do things my parents couldn't do.
Follow the Leader features dynamic women entrepreneurs and their journeys to becoming a success in business. This podcast is an inspirational space for entrepreneurs, future entrepreneurs, and thought leaders as they share their keys to success. I am Chanel Christoph Davis, the CEO and founding partner of the largest woman and minority-owned sales tax advisory practice in the country, Davis & Harmon, LLC. So hello and welcome back to Follow the Leader podcast show. Today on the show, we have Mignon Francois. She is the founder and CEO of the Cupcake Collection. While crunching numbers and creating the craze are amongst her job requirements, her favorite responsibilities within this role is giving back and giving hugs, listening and mentoring her team and other up-and-coming entrepreneurs who seek after her grassroots experience. Using her follow your spirit approach, Mignon developed an iconic flavor that drew lines and attention to her hip nature of her historic Germantown neighborhood that hadn't seen this concept develop before. The success of the Cupcake Collection thereby became icing on the cake amongst the existing North Nashville restaurateurs that will ignite a new movement to the area and for her business concept that might not otherwise have considered doing business in North Nashville. Since planting roots in 2008, Mignon's business savvy have earned her the titles of Woman of Legend and Merit by Tennessee State University, Emerging Business Leader of the Year, and Black Enterprise Magazine Family Business of the Year. Prior to her career at the Cupcake Collection, Mignon was a household manager and a mother to 6, plus 1, a NOLA girl. So she's a woman after my own heart, let me just say. She's from the core. She is a die-hard charter school enthusiast, and she lends her talent as a Nashville community cheerleader and entrepreneur to the Nashville Convention and Visitors Corporation Foundation, Nashville Entrepreneur Center, and to Pathway Women's Business Center as a board member. Mignon is an alumnus of Xavier University in New Orleans, and she received her Bachelor of Science Degree from Houston Baptist University in 1999, where she obtained her MBA from the School of Hard Knocks. She is currently working on an accredited degree from Lipscomb University. In her spare time, Mignon enjoys reading, walking the Nashville Greenway, and donut sampling around the country as a self-proclaimed donut aficionado. That sounds like a great job and a great role to take on. I mean, she's got to do it, because somebody has to do this for us. We appreciate you, Mignon, for your hard work and your dedication to donut learning. And she also has opened up a new branch of her Cupcake Collection in New Orleans. So welcome to the show, Mignon Francois.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy to talk to you because you are the epitome of entrepreneurial joy, just joy in general. So I knew that my audience would absolutely love you. And I wanted to talk to them about your story and how you began. But before we get into your business, tell us about young Mignon. What were you like as a kid?
Oh my gosh. Thank you for asking a different question.
That's what I do, girl. That's my skill.
I think that is so good, especially for leaders to know that, oh my gosh, young Mignon was shy. Young Mignon was not confident in herself. She knew that she had these great talents that she would only exhibit behind closed doors. But she would sit down and see other people doing stuff and she's like, I can do that better, and would never, take that time to do it. I definitely always was missing out on opportunities for things I wanted to be.
Okay.
I would always sort of suppress that desire to, because I was just that shy.
Okay.
We recently buried my father a week ago. And one of the things that I said as we listened to his obituary, that my father was very shy, but also very talented. But in this legacy, in this generation, we're going to make that name famous. So as an adult, I, have come out of that shell and tried to push down those fears that tell me what I can't be and what I can't do, and try to do those things more boldly and more loudly than ever before. So, yeah, that was young Mignon.
Wow. So were you bookish? Did you read a lot?
I was very smart. Yeah, I was the valedictorian of my 8th grade class. Would have been of my senior class from John F. Kennedy, but I decided to go on to college a year early. So I graduated out of my junior year.
Wow.
And then went on to Xavier at 17 years old.
So you were very bookish. You were very smart. Wow. So it's funny that you said that you were kind of outspoken amongst people that you trusted. So within the family unit, they could see who you were, but when you were around other people, you were shy.
Yeah, very much so. And I had a mom who I say that she's the captain of my cheerleading squad because she is our biggest fan and will cheer you into doing anything. Well, we were taught that because of our name, my maiden name is Terrio. And my mom believed that because we were Terrios, that meant that we could do anything. What I've learned as an adult is to encourage my children, not that they could be anything they wanted to be, because that's not true. But you can be anything that you've been called to be.
Gotcha.
And I think that there's a huge difference in that. If you see gifts and talents in your children and you sort of mold those things, they will more quickly become what they were purposed to be. But if I'm around here telling, my son that he can be a point guard for the Pelicans and he's only 5'1", like he's not trying to really be that. Like,
right.
It's not really gonna happen. And so then he spends his wells dreaming that I can play for the Pelicans one day when he has these other gifts and talents that can be nurtured and, spirited into becoming something. I think that's what our mother did very well. She pushed us into the things that we said that we wanted to do. And she was there to support and cheer those things on. So I can get off on another thing. See, you have this power, and then we have conversation and then, we're going to be talking about something else. I don't know. I'll try to stay up.
No, I love it. I'm like, listen, tell me about my power. No, I know how to pull it out of you. I know there's a deep well there because I think that, a lot of people want to aspire to be entrepreneurs because entrepreneurship is such a buzzword right now. It's very in vogue. And I think by looking back, and maybe if people can hear your backstory, they can kind of make some connections. Yeah. So and maybe see themselves in you. So I do appreciate you, kind of giving us a little bit of insight about who Mignon was from the very beginning. So now, were you a nurturing kid? Were you like a caretaker or a caregiver of amongst people?
Yeah, I was the neighborhood babysitter. I babysat, for everyone in the church. It's funny now that as I'm an adult, one of my daughters is marrying one of the little boys that I used to babysit.
Oh, wow. That's an occupational benefit. I love that.
They just became extended family, for me. So yeah, I was always babysitting somebody's children until I had my own children to take care of. That's what took me out of the industry because I ended up having my first baby when I was 18. Okay,
gotcha. So now, how did you discover your passion for pastry and for your delicacies? And we're going to add to the video some of the beautiful delicacies that you make, so people can.
Yeah, it was out of hunger. I was hungry. I was desperate. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was living in an affluent neighborhood that I kind of just happened upon. If I was to put myself side by side with these people, I wasn't in their league. Okay. It was kind of like, we came into this neighborhood in 2005. We bought the last blighted house in the neighborhood. We made a deal and had some special tricky financing, to make it work. But we were living here without electricity.
Oh, wow.
We were living here without water on a regular basis. We had a generator hooked up to our house to make our house run. But when I would see the people coming out of their houses across the street, it's like, God, that's not fair. How come they have an abundance and I don't have anything?
Right.
Kanye West lyrics that changed my mind. You know, it's like he has this song with Jay-Z called Otis. And I even spray painted the words on my wall and just wrote joy over them because it said, they ain't see me because I pulled up in my other Benz. Last week I was in my other Benz. And, you know, my thought is like, well, it's like, dang God, he has extra stuff and it's luxurious. I don't even have a car.
Wow.
And I heard God say, are you willing to do what he does to be where he is, to get what he has? And I understood then that work was required of me. I was listening to this financial guru on the radio every day who was telling people they could get out of debt by having a bake sale or a garage sale. But we have sold everything we had to get to Nashville in the first place. So we didn't have anything to have a garage sale with, but I thought we could have a bake sale. I had these two little girls. They were 10 and 16 at the time. I thought, you know, they were really good bakers. They could bake the stuff at night when they got home from school and I would sell it in the day.
Okay.
This neighborhood that I live in reminds me very much of my hometown in that it's a sort of shotgun house. You know, it's a historical neighborhood. And I just figure I have a window on the porch. I could open up this window and I could sell out of this. Snowball stands and other little like candy lady type houses in my community where I'm from existed in, you know,
New Orleans.
New Orleans. And so I understood that I could just raise up a window or open up the door and have a little business.
A little enterprise. So that I like that you talked about that. And this talks about always using what you're taught in your foundation and going back to your roots, because that is a very big part of our hometown, New Orleans. We have that in common. If y'all haven't figured it out, we both were born and raised in New Orleans. We always had a neighborhood candy lady. We had a neighborhood, you know, lady who did, you know, frozen cups.
Yeah.
Frozen cups. We call them frozen cups. So that's very a part of our culture. So yes, when you get in a bind, you went back to what you knew, and then the kind of sparked that interest in you.
Yeah. So they had people living and working in the neighborhood, and so the neighborhood was predisposed to that. Like it wasn't something they didn't understand, but it wasn't anything that looked like what I wanted to do.
Okay,
so gotcha. No one's ever going to come into this neighborhood for that, especially not anything gourmet. And we ended up changing the narrative about the neighborhood. Wow. Now it's a destination to come to in Nashville.
I love it.
We actually carry that torch to say that this is what you can do if you believe. And so you cannot now tell the story of Germantown without including Mignon Francois and the Cupcake Collection.
That is fantastic.
They can do here.
So we kind of sped through your story a little bit. You mentioned a very pivotal year that I know, 2005. You just kind of breeze right by it. I know because I'm from New Orleans what happened in 2005. What made you end up in Tennessee?
So we chose to come to Nashville. You know, it's kind of like the movie Coming to America. Anywhere in the world you want to go, you know? And so we just...
You were leaving New Orleans?
We were at the time, we were leaving. We had decided that we wanted to raise our children in different cities around the country.
Okay.
And we wanted to give them culture within the culture.
Okay.
And we moved and we lived in Houston for 5 years. We lived in Atlanta for, I think, 8 years. And then it was time for us to move on. We had always had this plan that we wouldn't move our children during high school, but we would move them at least every 5 years. And so we were drowning in debt. We were looking for a better life. We were looking for opportunity. And so we were thinking, we'll either go to Nashville or California. And so we decided on Nashville. And we got here. And as soon as we got here, the job that my husband came here for fell through. My husband. He was my husband. At the time.
Okay.
But he's not anymore. So we want to make that clear.
Okay, gotcha.
And glory to God. And so anyway, God in his infinite wisdom knows what he's doing, even if we don't. But anyway, we got here and the job that he came here for fell through. And so we had sold what we had to get here. And so that was what landed us in this sort of position of not being able to make ends meet. I just wanted to help. I wanted to help make the ends meet. I wanted to have field trip money for my kids. I would be the room mom at school so that I could go on the field trip so that my children could get it for free possibly, or I could, bring some drinks in my bag, little things like that.
Yeah.
I didn't have money.
Gotcha. So when you decided to come up with the Cupcake Collection, you weren't thinking, I'm going to create this sensation. You were just trying to add, like most women do, we're going to add what we can to the home economy, right? Because we're home economists. And so that we can make ends meet and make it to the next month.
Yes, that's all I was trying to do. I was trying to help out sometimes. I didn't know that it was going to grow to this. I was just
put a pin in it. So your idea was, I'm just trying to bring in a little extra cash. I'm not trying to.
I just wanted some cash for me, so I could buy a shoe
or two. Yeah, put a little Christmas money on the side, put a little Christmas gifts. I get it.
That's all I wanted. I wanted something extra.
So tell the Follow the Leader company listeners, what happened next when you decided to launch the Cupcake Collection? What actually happened?
I thought that everybody was going to line up and come. I thought that, because I had told the world, I thought that I was building this thing, that everybody was going to come. And they didn't. I had put all of this effort in. For 2 years, I worked on this like it was a job before the store ever even opened. And when I finally got it open, I thought that the people were going to come, and they didn't. And so I would bake, every day. Because if I back up, I said I had 2 little girls who were great bakers, but I couldn't bake at all.
You could not
even out of a box.
Stop it.
Couldn't bake. And so it was them that I was building this idea on. And after I got started, my oldest daughter let me know that she did have a plan for her life. It did not include me. And she was going back to New Orleans, where we're from.
Okay.
And so her younger sister wasn't interested. And so that left me, that I put this 3x3 sign outside of my house saying a bakery was coming soon. I thought I had told the whole world with just that one sign that we were coming. And I felt like I had to keep my word. So I went to my science background. I called on my grandmother, who was a really great baker. I said, Grandma, I need to make a cake. And she's like, why? You don't even like to be in the kitchen. I said, because the man on the radio says that you can get out of debt. And so she started telling me how to make a cake. Grab your hand, this much of that, pinch your fingers, this much of that. And I made my first successful cake. But what I realized as I was reading over what my grandmother gave me, that my hands could be swollen someday. My hands are not the size of my grandmother's. It might not always be the same, because, grandma sometimes be a little off.
Yeah.
She did. It wasn't the same this time, Grandma. And I didn't want my business to be like that. I knew if I was going to have a business that people were going to come to, that it needed to be consistently the same. Yes. And so I looked at what my grandmother had given me, and I had an aha moment. That which I couldn't apply to the human body when I was at Xavier studying science, I could all of a sudden apply it here with these ingredients. It all made sense to me. What I had 17 years earlier flunked out of my chemistry class with, it was all coming to life for me. And I started balancing equations, something I could never do in chemistry. And I started making chemical reactions, and I started realizing that I could manipulate the ingredients to get what I wanted. At that point, it was nothing I couldn't make. And so from there, we've created, all of the recipes are now mine. We've won awards across the country for this Cupcake Collection recipe. And I just want people to know every stupid thing that you've ever had to do, it wasn't a mistake.
Right.
It was necessary. It was necessary to get you from where you are to where it is that you're going to be.
And you were able to pull on all the things that you thought were horrible disasters in your life, like your chemistry, background. God called that back to your brain, and you were able to use it in this business.
Even to the recession, even to the fact that we opened in 2008.
Yes, in the height of a recession. Yes,
the height of the recession, I couldn't get any credit because I was not credit worthy.
Okay.
I couldn't lease a building because I didn't have any knowledge of the business. I didn't have any investors. I didn't have any backing. I didn't have any money, and I didn't have any credit. All of the things that you need to be successful in the industry that's known for failing.
Yes.
And so it put me in my house. It put me in my house that was zoned mixed use that I could use, because I had a separate door. I had a separate space that I could allot just to this business. And it's just like, when you think that you don't have anything, all you have to do is look and see what's inside your house. It reminds me of this biblical story of this widow who was going to lose her children to slavery because her husband had died and left them with debt. And so she goes to the prophet and says, what am I supposed to do? I don't have anything. And he says to her, who comes to him for help, well, what do you have? Like, don't just come to me looking for me help. Solution. What do you have? Because you got to bring something to the table. And so he says to her, what do you have in your house? And she says, well, all I have is a little bit of oil. And he tells her, go knock on all of your neighbors' doors. Speaks to community.
Yes.
You got to get some other people involved with you. Go knock on your neighbors' doors and ask them, can you get some jars? She gets jars and starts filling them up with oil, and then takes the oil and then goes and sells it, and not only gets out of debt, but she goes into wealth, which also teaches us that you can't be afraid.
Yes.
And then you've got to know that whatever you put into it is what you're going to get out.
Oh, absolutely.
If she had only, brought in 12 jars, that's all she was going to fill. But she went and got jars till she couldn't get no more. Child said, Mama, ain't no more jars.
So
I feel like that's been my story.
That's been your story. So when you guys found this place, did you know it was mixed use?
No, it just reminded us of home. We wanted to be in this neighborhood because it reminded us of New Orleans. The sidewalks are brick. The houses are historic. They have these wild colors. It just reminded me of uptown New Orleans, uptown or midtown New Orleans. And I just wanted to be here because it was an area of town I could have never afforded to live in at home. And so it was like I could have access to it. And it was the only reason why. So it's like sometimes you think that things are happening to you, but those things are actually happening for you.
Yeah, because I was wondering, like, how did you get to sell cupcakes out of your home? But it was a mixed use neighborhood.
My assistant just showed me something that to bring up to you too. When I purchased this house, it was blighted. They were offering owner financing on it. And I just thought, okay, well, I'll take the owner financing and, just give it to me. And, thinking that because it was condemned, that, nobody was going to pay this kind of money for this house. And he was like, there are people lining up to buy this house. There's going to be a restaurant here. And I was like, there's not going to be no restaurant here.
Not here.
Not in this. But little did he know that he was speaking to my life.
Wow.
I didn't know there was going to be a restaurant there. Not only was there going to be a restaurant there, it was going to be mine.
It would be your restaurant.
Yes. And it was going to be award winning, and it was going to have my name on it.
So you really did rebirth an area that was already designated to be a business district in the first place.
So when I got here, there were only 3 restaurants, and you came to these restaurants and you got out of this neighborhood. I mean, that was the consensus. Not for the people who were living here, of course. This was our home. This was North Nashville. So a lot of people were afraid to come to North Nashville. We recreated the narrative and said, we're not going to bite you in North Nashville. We actually want to welcome you here. And so we showed them that 37208, which is actually the most incarcerated zip code in the country. We showed them that there was something sweet about this part of town. Wow. And that it was the sweetest place to be. And so now, with the way that they've torn down one house and built 15, it's kind of happened all the way across the country. The whole neighborhood has changed, but we remain in ownership here.
Right.
And so it's very important to us that we keep ownership of this land. This was the first incorporated neighborhood in Nashville.
Wow.
And so we feel proud to be a part of the continued story of
the continued history. That's beautiful. So when you first opened up your cupcake collection, the first day no one came. What did you do then? How did you?
So the first day there were a lot of people. So our friends came, and they, everybody said they want to come back.
All your close friends came.
Yeah, all of them came. They bought everything. So it's like, this is going to be good. And then we didn't see anybody else.
Right.
But we are really close to a really popular destination restaurant here in the block.
Okay.
And so I have 6+1 children. I say that because one attached herself to our lives when she was 14 years old, and she became very much one of my clan. And so we always want to tell her story, and make it clear that she is one of mine. But
okay.
My children had this, on the night before I opened, they came behind their backs with something, a gift to give to me, a surprise. And it was a pickle jar that they had decorated. And they had made it into a tip jar because they wanted people to honor my work, because they knew that I really wasn't going to be making any money, but they felt like with tips, I could probably, make some money. And so they made that for me. I was just so overjoyed with tears that I told my children, if you will come to work for me after school every day, I'll give you whatever I collect in the tip jar. So that became what they made to work at the bakery for a few years. That's all they made. And when the word got out that my children worked for tips, people would just come into the house over the years and just fill the tip jar so that my children. But the way they met my children was with your first question, like what happened after the first day? Well, my children would go out into the neighborhood. One particular son, he wanted to tell the world that his mom made the best cupcakes in town.
Oh.
And then it began to be, my mom makes the best cupcakes in Nashville, and then Tennessee, and then the world. And little did we also know that he was fulfilling setting a prophecy into motion that, we would become that eventually. So we made they got on the computer, made these little flyers out of cardstock paper, and they went down to the restaurant. He asked permission from the owner down there, if while the people were milling around and waiting, could he tell them about his mother's business? The owner was just moved by this kid.
Oh.
And said, yes, you can. And so those people started coming down, and those people started tasting and saying, I got to tell other people about this. And so they would take them back to their office, and that would bring more people in. It was one day I was sitting in the house waiting for customers to come. I had made $17 that day, and I felt defeated. I felt like, God, what am I doing here? I did this because you told me to. And where are the people? My husband had called to check on me at the time, and he asked how the day was, and I opened my mouth and got ready to complain. And in that moment, I said, wait a minute, whatever came, God sent it. So then he's responsible for it. So I'm good. It was when I got that in the fabric of who I was that God decided whether I was going to be successful or not. I had to work, but if I met him with the work, he would be responsible whether I ate, whatever, how I was clothed, whether we had lights. And ever since the Cupcake Collection started, we've not had another day that we couldn't afford to have lights, not another day that we couldn't afford to have water. And in fact, we're helping to make sure that other people have the same thing, not only because we created career opportunities for people here, but we have scholarships in our name.
Oh, I love
And
it.
we last year earmarked those scholarships for business students. And so now we're looking to groom business students through the universities that are along our corridor to help them be able to also make ends meet. Because I truly believe that entrepreneurship is access to freedom. We are the first generation of African Americans with full access to opportunity. I can do things my parents couldn't do.
Absolutely.
And I was just born in the 70s.
Absolutely.
And so when I look at what my parents couldn't do and how scared it made them to watch me step off into my own business full time, like we go to jobs and we work 35 years and we get pensions and that's what we do. My parents had little side hustles here and there, but never would they have done their whole life
business. Yeah.
With it. And so when I look at my children, they'll be the first generation of African Americans with access to wealth transference. So as a collective, our whole community of children in this generation will, for the first time, be being passed businesses and wealth outside of insurance policies. And when I look at my little granddaughters, I know that, and now I have grandsons too. I got to change my language,
Language, yeah.
As I look at my grandchildren, I know that they'll be the first generation of African Americans as a collective that have the opportunity to just be, what's the word I want to say? Privileged.
Privileged and free thinkers.
Privileged.
Yes.
Because they say things right now, like at 6 and 9 years old, like, girl, shut your mouth,
But
you can't say that, but they can.
They're born into a different existence, a different world than even when we came about. So absolutely, they're gonna grow up and have a different world perspective and a world view about what's possible, which is beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. You have said like 10 different things that have my brain like totally spinning right now. So I'm just gonna unpack some of the stuff that you said.
Okay.
As an entrepreneur, it's a daily faith walk.
Mm-hmm.
You have to wake up every single day with the most amazing faith that God is walking ahead of us and walking inside of us and carrying us along this path.
Amen.
And when you said that, I stopped saying things because whatever God provided for me is what I was supposed to have. Girl, that was a hallelujah moment for me. I'm serious. I was like, she's going to start preaching on this podcast right now because that is so true. And when you get that in your head, Mignon, your whole path changes.
Yeah.
It's freedom on a whole nother level when you understand that where you are right now is where you're supposed to be.
Yeah. And it goes down to that story of that widow. It's according to your faith, it will be for you. There's a Bible verse that says, according to your faith, be it unto you. So it's like, so whatever you believe, you can have.
Yes.
So if you believe you can have it, you can have it. And so it goes down to what I always say, speak what you see till you see what you said. Because the power of life is in your tongue. And the power of death is in there too.
As well. But you also said, which I don't want to gloss over, is that you cannot have faith without work. Because God is wanting you to put that work, that sweat equity, come to him with something before you show up and asking God for everything.
Because you know what we do? We ask God to do things that he's already given us the ability to do. And as parents to children or as leaders to followers, right? You don't want a follower coming up to you, asking you to do something you already gave them permission to do, already gave them the resources to do, already gave them the ability to do. And they're coming and asking you for things that you're like, okay, so clearly you don't need to be on my team because you want somebody to give you something or play, right? And I think that God is the same way. We asked him to tie our shoes and he said, no, I give you hands for that.
That's powerful.
Ask me for something bigger. And I just want to ask God for bigger things. And I think asking him for bigger things, you also have to be ready to meet him with, okay, this is how I'm prepared. This is what I did. I got up this morning, or I researched this. I really know that I want this, or I know what this means that I'm asking you for. Okay. And I'm asking him to come alongside of me in a skill set I didn't have. I didn't know how to bake, but I wanna have this baking business. So he's like, okay, what skills do you have? Well, I got the house. I've looked for the place. I can't get none of those, but I have this little room. I opened this business with a dorm size refrigerator and a KitchenAid mixer because that's what I had. That's what would pass code. That's what would keep just enough ingredients, at temperature so that I could make them. And one little oven that had 2 racks in it.
And you created, look what you created from just that humble beginning, but you started. That's the key. You have to start before you ask God to make you a millionaire.
You're preaching over here. Like, I'm the shout at your church.
Yes.
This is the Follow the Leader church.
Girl, I mean, listen, I mentor women entrepreneurs. I have a heart for women entrepreneurs. And when they call me and they tell me, because everyone has their day when they're just like discouraged and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, tell me this. If you were working for some, and I'm not telling you not to give up on your dream. I'm not telling you because they're calling me to give up. They're calling me for me to say, oh yeah, girl, just go on and put that resume together. You don't want to do this. That's what they want me to say. I won't ever say it. So I always ask them, let me ask you this. You could put your resume together and put your resume back on the market and walk away from your business. But what would you do if you worked for someone else? What would you do if you were in this position and instead of it being your business, it was someone else's business? What would you do to generate business? And they said, well, I would do X, Y. They have a whole plan.
Yeah, because you can't go to them without a plan, but you expect to show up for yourself without one.
I said, I'm going to need you to do exactly what you just told me that you would do for somebody else. Do that for yourself first. And then come back to me a month from now and tell me how you're doing.
Amen. And then a month from then, they got all new kinds of business.
Exactly. They've had that light bulb moment and they're like, oh my God, thank you, girl. But yeah, you have to use what God gave you. So many talents, so many skills. Use what he gave you first, and then ask him to multiply.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
I love it. So I want to also talk about, you talked about Lil Mignon. I keep thinking about Lil Mignon. You said that you were very afraid and very shy. How do you today, because I know that that's a part of entrepreneurship too, is working through fear. How do you manage that today? When you're afraid, what do you do?
Well, this is what I want people to know. People want fear to go away, but you can't have courage unless there is fear.
True.
Because courage is moving in spite of the fact that fear exists. So if there is no fear, there is no courage. So what I often do is I tell myself the truth. Often the things I read recently to change what you're wishing for to what you're hoping for. Because things that you worry about or things that you wish would happen usually don't happen. But the things that you hope for usually do. So stop wishing and worrying and start hoping and praying. And so when I feel fear coming on the inside of me, I just tell myself the truth. You are the head and not the tail. You are above and not beneath. You were made for this. You practiced for this. You're ready for this. I find myself being fearful when I'm not prepared. But when I am and fear tries to creep in, then that's the false evidence appearing real. That's the acronym that I try to always, teach myself or remind myself that fear is false evidence appearing real. And so I tell myself the truth. And so I tell myself is that, hey, if somebody else deserved to be here, they would be here. This position and this at this time was created for you. So you go rock it out and you go leave your name behind, because with a name like Mignon, you probably are talking about me.
Mignon Francois. Don't forget that, baby. Mignon Francois. Okay.
You're probably talking about me, right? So that's a heavy load for me to carry and just do it mediocre, right?
Yes.
I feel like we have this great and amazing God who showed us by example what entrepreneurship is. In 7 days, he created everything that we have. And on 6 days, he created. On the seventh, he stepped back and looked at it and said, this is good. And so he showed us what entrepreneurship can look like. He even upgraded his product in the process when he created a woman.
He did that thing. He was like, it's not good enough.
He was like, this product isn't finished. Let me go ahead and put out the new improved version. Let me put another version.
Well, I said, let me remix this and make it a little bit better.
That's when we put Walkman in there. It's like, whoa, let me just, upgrade this man.
Yes, Mignon. Yes. What I like to say, because I'm afraid, when I get afraid too, first of all, when I get afraid, I'm always like, I think to myself, oh, I'm on the right track. Mm-hmm. When I'm afraid, it kind of is a little bit of a tickler in my head that, okay, Chanel, this is good. Pay attention, right? Yeah. You're stretching yourself. I mean, this podcast was a stretch, right? Mm-hmm. My background is tax and accounting. My company is tax and accounting. What I look like starting a podcast? It has nothing to do with accounting and tax. That was a stretch. It was. It could have paralyzed me and had me fearful. But I always think about, God doesn't put anything. He did not bring you this far to leave you. Like look how far he's brought you from New Orleans, from, being in a low income area with single parent home, because my dad died when I was really, really young, living in a real, socioeconomic different situation to where I am today. He wouldn't have done all this for you, girl, to leave you. Yeah. So you got it. Just push forward.
Walk in what you've been called to do.
Walk into your calling. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I believe there's 2 reasons we'll close our eyes in forever sleep. Either we fulfilled our purpose or we ignored it. And when we know that the ideas that are dropped to us are not ours anyway, we're just being asked to steward over them. We would handle those ideas differently. A lot of people are afraid to think that people are going to think their idea is stupid.
Yeah.
You're not worried about sharing what Chanel told you to do because it was Chanel's idea. But when it becomes Mignon's idea, there's like, oh, I don't want to tell nobody because you might think it's stupid, right? But I'm never afraid to tell what somebody else did. And if we realize that the ideas that come into our head aren't ours in the beginning, they're God's. He asked you to come into communion with him and to collaboration with him to create what he's asked you to do. And so when you realize you're just on assignment to do a thing and it's not your idea anyway, you approach it with a whole different skill set and a whole different set of fears or courage.
Courage, yes, I love that. So now you have since you've set Nashville on fire. I can't wait to come visit too. I'm so excited. You have since expanded to New Orleans. Tell us about the New Orleans spot.
So my New Orleans store was my love letter back to the city. I feel like New Orleans is the city that made me who I am. And I had gone to visit after Katrina and I had seen so many things that didn't remind me of home. So many, outsiders I felt had come in and were turning into something that I didn't understand. And so I wanted to be a part of the conversation. You don't get to talk about something if you're not going to do something about it, right? Yes. And so I wanted to be a part of the conversation on the rebuild after Katrina. And so I wanted to bring my brands back home alongside of the things that I learned while I was away. And, my family name, Terrio, actually hails from one of the largest plantations in Louisiana.
Oh, wow.
At the time. And so I just felt like there were so many women who came before me in this lineage whose names you'll never know, who were probably great at what's been instilled and installed in me. And so I want to let their names cry out from the grave in the work that I do.
I love it.
That even though they didn't have an opportunity to have ownership, I will go back and redeem the time because we can't get the time back, but we can redeem it by how we use it while it's in our possession. And so I wanted to go back to New Orleans and have ownership there. which is one of the reasons why we planted on Magazine Street, a place where we historically
weren't allowed to go. We weren't allowed to be on Magazine.
Yeah.
Damn, not even to peruse. I love
everything was on purpose. And so I wanted to go back and teach my sisters how to fish. And so I wanted to create legacy in our family. And so now our goal is to teach this entrepreneurship and to teach business in our community. Because it's, we often get this bad rap in this community that we're always late, or we don't know how to do business, or that's why I don't, I often hear people say, that's why I don't do business with Black business. And it's just an unfair place to be when I don't have 300 years of my grandfather did it this way.
Right.
I just finished saying we're the first generation with full access to opportunity. So I'm learning how to do business as I go, and I'm going to always show up as the best version of myself. But, that's going to mean I'm going to make mistakes, and we don't often give grace. And so I want to go back and I want to teach within my own, my own spectrum or my own wheelhouse or where I can reach to teach business and to leave that as a legacy for the ones that are coming behind me. And so that's why it was so important for me to go back to New Orleans.
Wow, that's amazing. Amazing. So now what do you have on the radar? What's on the landscape for Mignon in years to come? What are you planning to do next?
I'm hoping to write this story down and to share it with the world, to give them a roadmap that they can use when they see themselves looking just like me. I want other women to know that they're not alone. There's a reason why I tell people my business, not so they can be up in my business, but so they can be about their business, and about improving their own situation. We all, God dreams a bigger dream for us than we've ever been able to dream for ourselves. It's just like, when you think about the little that you asked for and how much greater, I just wanted field trip money. Look where I am now.
Wow, amazing.
And I never knew that it would be locations in other cities and collaborations and partnerships with other brands who want to open the door to opportunity for me, for my family, for this brand, and for other people. And so not only are we able to provide joy for ourselves, we're actually able to inject that joy into other people who can now learn from the things that we had to go through, so they don't have to travel the same road. So I'm hoping to write it down. I'm taking every opportunity to take a stage, to say, I'm you, you look like me, and I've been where you are, and you can stand up here stand on this platform with me. Because I just feel like this. If you were given a platform, it wasn't so that you couldn't invite other people onto the stage.
Absolutely.
Your job is to invite other people to come alongside of you in the journey. So that's what I want to do. I want to teach business, and so that's why I spend so much time at the Entrepreneur Center and at the Women's Business Center and at Lipscomb University and their business department.
I love it.
And just trying to do the same things now in New Orleans, where I'm from.
And I love the fact that you've incorporated lifting as your client, because to be honest with you, to be on the stage by yourself is boring. Who wants to be on the stage, right? You want to bring some folk along, because who wants to be sitting on the stage by themselves? I love it. I love it. So I just want to say thank you so much, Mignon Francois, for your uplifting, amazing story. If you're ever in North Nashville, you guys have to look up the Cupcake Collection. It is world renowned at this point. If you're ever in New Orleans on Magazine Street, look up the Cupcake Collection. Visit Mignon's enterprise, and her beautiful creation is amazing. Thank you, Mignon.
Thank you so much. And if they're not in Nashville or New Orleans, we also ship nationwide. So you can have it right at their homes, in the comfort of their living room.
Beautiful, which is perfect for where we are now, because we're in our homes and our living rooms anyway. So we're going to drop the online URLs for everyone so they can check out and visit you on your online store as well. Thank you, Mignon. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a joy to talk to you.
can find all of our past episodes on iTunes, Spotify, and Google, or any of your other favorite podcast platforms. Be sure to subscribe to the show, rate, and leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing. Thank you for listening.